Okay, good evening, members and friends. I'm Ng Seng, Chairman of the Funding Requirements Interest Group. This evening, I'm sharing with you the impact of inflation on our retirement plan. As usual, we have to look at the disclaimer. The information and materials provided in this talk is for education purpose only. Nothing presented in this talk should be construed to be a recommendation to buy or sell any specific security. The information, software, and techniques presented should only be used by investors who are aware of the risks inherent in trading. Singapore Microcomputer Society, short form SMF, and its executive committee have no liability for any investment decision based on the use of software or any trading strategy or any information provided in connection with this talk. So what is inflation? The meaning of inflation is what? First of all, what exactly inflation? Most of us already have an inducive grasp of concept. Example, you walk to a kopitiam and you order a coffee. Last time it cost you $1, now it costs you $1.20. So there's a 20-cent difference. Works out to be about 20% increase. So you know that there is a so-called a price increase. And what that is quite called inflation, because our purchasing power become bigger, or the same amount of money cannot buy so many things now. Technically, inflation cover more than that. It refers to the price increase of a standardized baskets of goods. There is not just food and drink, but also housing, transport, healthcare, education, and even recreation. So in any country, Singapore included, is compiled by the Department of Statistics every month, and is published officially as the CPI, Consumer Price Index. And no, they don't just record the cheapest brand, house brand or product at NTUC FairPrice. The total basket of goods comprises 6,800 brands or varieties of items, and prices are surveyed at 4,200 outlets across the whole of Singapore. So the CPI is published every month, and each month CPI benchmark against the same statistics a year ago. For example, the CPI for June 2019 is measured against that of June 2018. The difference between this year and last year's CPI is equal to the annual inflation rate in Singapore. The rising inflation in Singapore. The numbers don't lie. Last year in December 2021, Singapore headline inflation rose to 4%, surpassing of outstripping the expected projection of 3.7%. The last time Singapore headline inflation crossed the 4% mark was in February 2013. Similarly, the core inflation rate in December 2021 stood at 2.1%, the highest since July 2014. These figures are mainly driven up by the steep increases in airfare and COVID-19 testing costs under the Singapore Vaccinated Travel Lane, VTL in short scheme. Given this higher than expected inflation rate, MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, has adjusted their projected inflation rate for 2022. MAS core inflation now is projected to be 2 to 3% this year, from 1 to 2% expected in October last year. Meanwhile, headline inflation expected to be 2.3 and 3.5, from the earlier forecast range of 1.5 to 2.5%. So for this year, what are the items can we expect to see a price hike? Food, with regional supply disruption and rising energy costs contributing to food inflation, we can expect food prices to increase even further in the coming year. The other thing is utility. That means your electricity, your utility bill in the coming month. With the energy prices on the incline, your utilities and electricity will be directly impacted. So you don't wait to switch to the open electricity market for saving. Public transport. Not only do we have to bear with unacceptable amounts of body contact over packed MRT as more people return to work, you can expect to pay even higher fare before long. Well, if it's any consolation, car owners aren't spared from the price hike. They too will be chalking up more price higher in petrol fees or diesel fuel. Travel. Given that the soaring airfare have contributed greatly to the increase of the overall inflation rate, this should come as little surprise. Post-pandemic, travel is about to get even more expensive. Next, how does inflation rate affect all of us? Just to reiterate, we project core inflation of 2022 at 2 to 3%. You will certainly feel the pinch on the day-to-day when you take public transport, dine out or eat out, or you travel. And of course, for those who are children, your expenses will be higher, maybe their school bus fare, their food, so allowance that you provide for them, all this you have to expecting to increase. So if you are still working as an employee or as a worker, if you are not able to get at least 2% salary increase, effectively you are getting a pay cut because of the higher prices of everything. So that's how you can see that the civil servant, the government take care of them first of all. Just recently they announced that civil servant will get a pay rise averaging 100% to 100%. In fact, this announcement is already backdated. About 2 or 3 months ago, the civil servant already enjoying this pay rise already, in view of the so-called inflation. But for the private sector, was drawing a salary from the private sector. So if your boss not going to increase your salary this year by at least 2%, so you are effectively getting a pay cut because of the higher prices you have to pay for everything. In fact, inflation can seriously impact our major life decisions. Example, with the rising cost of feeding and educating kids, the young couple who got married or who just married, they may delay the decision for procreation or making babies. Of course, this is one of the excuses if you are so-called somebody who so-called value married life and will very subject to the decision of procreation and these extra expenses we have to bear with. What Singaporeans can do to combat inflation? First thing, the income must be equally same or better than the inflation rate increase. So, for example, inflation is expected to be 1 to 2%, then we should have at least 3% type of salary increase, or at least higher than the inflation rate. In the past, when your banker or your RM, your relationship manager, explain to you that if you do not invest your money or you just want to get the interest from bank interest or from the fixed deposit interest, it is normally not good enough to overcome the inflation rate of being 1 to 2% on average in Singapore. But so effectively, the amount of money is still there in terms of the absolute figure, but in terms of the purchasing power, you will have less purchasing power. It's not easy to find low risk instrument that can beat 3%. For example, parking your cash in a high interest deposit account might come close to it, but it's not quite there. Even CPF ordinary OA interest rate is only 2.5%. So, if you want to have low risk or little risk, I think one way is, of course, for those who have saving in the CPF account, you might move some more money to the special account to enjoy the 4% interest rate with little risk. Of course, outside the CPF environment, you have to think of where so that your money will not be eroded by the inflation. Of course, any investment also attract risk. So if you are not prepared to sum up the risk, then you will be better off just leaving them in the fixed deposit account or any interest-bearing account, or buy some investment-linked product. So supposedly will give you a better return than the bank interest rate. So next, the impact of inflation. People tend to under-provide for their future because they think of their retirement needs in present day cost. In May 2019, there was a study by the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. They found that a single elder person aged 65 and above requires approximately about $1,379 a month to meet basic needs. Basic needs means your food, your transport, your medical, and shelter over your head and all these things. So it's equal to, if you multiply by 12, it's about $16,548 a year. This basic standard of living included only items that participants in the study determined were necessary for them. And those during days 2019, the item considered doesn't include air conditioning, and of course, car will consider extravagance. I mean, it's a luxury. And of course, this will not included in the calculation. So we can, if you use this as a guideline as of how much need to have in your bank account in order to have a standard of living that you have, where your basic needs can be provided for. But coming back, you look at the average earner of those Singaporean workers, you'll find that fortunately or unfortunately, example, your cleaner for the town council, the worker, they are getting about $700 per month. So we can imagine for the young people, we are not talking about the retiree 65 years. Even for those currently for earning a living, some of them are really below the so-called the basic needs, following below the basic needs that the money can provide. Of course, some people may have other source of income from maybe rental income or contribution by their children, all this to their aged parent. We are just talking about if you are at age of 65 and you do not have enough saving or CPF that able to provide you about 1,300 something or 1,400 per month as your living expenses, it will be quite tough for that person. So if you have opportunity to meet up with some of these senior citizens or uncle, auntie, whether they're working at the airport or at the hawker center, helping out in the wet market, you know, or doing some other handiwork, we have so-called some extra income for the family. You will notice why some of them say, I cannot afford to retire, or if I stop working, my mouth will stop also because I need to feed myself or feed my elder parents or feed my parents or feed my children. So you can imagine why many of our so-called senior citizens still desire or wish to continue working to have some sort of income to support them instead of just take it easy and live on their saving or live on their CPF money, which basically is not enough for them to have a decent lifestyle. If you look at this calculation, you assume that you are around 27 years old in the year 2019, and you plan to retire at age 62 in year 2054. We can apply Singapore long-term inflation rate of averaging 2.7% per annum to determine the future amount required. To buy the same amount of goods and services with 16,548, you need to build up your money to have a sum of $42,045 in year 2054. And with each passing year, the amount one needs to retire will continue to grow with inflation. So to fund a basic retirement lifestyle in 2054, we need a retirement nest of about 1.3 million. That is based on the financial calculator. So 2054, you need this amount. So if over 23 years, your build up to be 1.3 million. Frightening, is it? So as years go on, your $1 will become smaller and smaller and smaller. Hence, you have to have big amount of money buy the same amount of goods or services. The next is increasing life expectancy. According to the actuary, the guy who does all the computation or forecasting of the lifestyle of all the various countries, it has been projected that Singaporeans nowadays, on average, have outlived the Japanese to have the longest life expectancy in the world at nearly 85 years old. So what it means is, if you retire at 62, with the life expectancy of 85 years, so we could have to expect to spend another 23 years in retirement. So with medical advancement and an increase in life expectancy, we could have to spend longer period in retirement and hence require a larger retirement next age in future. So this so-called because of better healthcare in Singapore and the medical so-called availability of medicine and medical care in Singapore. So now we're able to live up to 85 years. So you can call this good news or not so good news. For those who have prepared themselves for this kind of life expectancy, of course, they are ready for this kind of for time to resent retirement. But for others, sometimes it is, especially if some of us who have visited the senior citizen home or the old folks home, you'll find that some of them 60 plus, they already have mobility problem. They need wheelchair or PMD or something to move from point A to point B. In other words, they are not so mobile some more. So many a time, some of them they don't even can manage the basic things like to wear the clothes or to train or to wash themselves up and all this. So some of the basic things that we do every day for some of these so-called old folks at the age of between 60 or 70, they also cannot do all this by themselves. So you can imagine if we don't have a healthy lifestyle or healthy body, you can imagine what is the burden that you're going to rest on the society or on your family or rest on the government. Next thing is rising medical cost. As we live longer, we will be spending more years in poor health if you cannot afford to have those basic so-called saving that 1,600 per year per month to live to carry on living. So take for example, from some projection, in 2017, the number of years Singaporeans live in poor health was 10.6 years, about 1.5 years longer than 1990. So you can see in 1990, they were calculated about 9 point, number of years in poor health, about 9 years. So come 2017, the number of years in poor health of these people already gone up from 9 to 10.6. Here, this chart shows that in 1990, the life expectancy was 76.1 years. 2017, we have life expectancy grow up to almost 85 years. So you can see within this period, we begin to live longer and longer. So this is one of the areas that maybe we have to look up for. And first thing is that the inflation rate, if you look at medical costs, is generally much higher than the other expenses. Medical cost inflation has been far outstripping general inflation rate throughout the world. Singapore medical cost inflation rate rose 10% in 2018, according to the Malaysia Marsh Benefit study by them. So around the world, the world report. So in comparison, headline inflation for that year was only 0.4%. So you can imagine, I mean, the basket of the time we're talking about 6,000 over item, the price increase average was only 0.4% in 2019. But for medical cost, it was 10% increase in 2018, according to study being conducted. So, in other words, medical cost inflation is much higher than the headline inflation. So it's important to be aware of healthcare risk and assess your insurance coverage. Essential insurance coverage in retirement include having suitable hospitalization and long-term care plan. This is so-called ideally for those who are working and have excess income or saving, so they can plan for all these things. That means buying the essential insurance to take care of their hospitalization and long-term care. Or sometimes for some employee, example, civil servant, some of the example, the teachers or some of the other group of workers, the government or some of the employer provide them with the very so-called attractive medical benefit. So for those people, employees, they save or they don't need to spend so much money on this insurance coverage when they are still working for the company. Of course, they should plan for themselves that should they stop working or when they retire, this benefit will not be there for them. So they may have to, before that happens, they should have buy so-called certain insurance coverage to take care of their retirement time period, especially for hospitalization and long-term care plan. This is going to be my last slide. So what can we do so-called to prepare for your retirement? Of course, the most important thing is when you are younger day, you have to think about this plan of retirement. So there's actually no magic solution. So we have to prepare ourselves for retirement, and we have to take small steps in the right direction. It's always a good idea. So we need to have a clear plan that involves disciplined saving. Saving effectively means delay spending your money.
Wait.
Illness and accident can disrupt even the best layout plan. So you need to protect your financial plan by ensuring adequately to cover yourself or your life unfortunate event.
Yeah.
And the final point is we have to do some investment so that your money will not be eaten up or make less purchasing power because of inflation increase. So there are, of course, a lot of way to invest your money so that you should be able to enjoy some sort of compound interest gain. Example, some of those they buy those insurance plan, investment linked insurance. If you are prepared to take a bit more risk, you can buy stocks and shares, or you can buy bonds, or you can buy those funds whereby the return is better than the interest rate of the bank. Of course, all this investment exercise, we have to have what called longer term strategy. Because if you think about short term, you will not able to enjoy the compounding interest type of back that your money will work for you. And just like anything, if you earn this X amount of money, if you don't set aside, have a discipline of setting aside 10 or 20% of your income to put into saving, and then also to make use of this saving to invest in something for your future, then it will be very hard for you as you grow older, because the investment journey is a long-term plan. You will not able to enjoy those compounding effect of the money. You think in terms of 1 to 3 years, 5 years. This compounding interest will be felt when you invest for a period of 7 years or more. Then you are able to see the compounding effect of the interest on the amount that you invested, and the interest will gain interest, make interest more. So your egg nest will able to grow accordingly. This is especially so where sometimes sad to say, like example, since the COVID hit us, many of the people lost their job, and many of them join the so-called the gig economy. That is, they do Grab delivery or all those so-called job that give them quite a good income, but these people they are not able to enjoy any CPF, medical coverage or insurance coverage. Most of these gig economy workers, they only get cash, and some of them quite happy with that, because in the absence of the requirement of CPF contribution and other contribution, the take-home pay will be look quite attractive for them. And some after a while, all the gig economy workers tend to enjoy this type of ready cash for them to spend, and they don't bother about saving for retirement or having CPF so-called as part of their protection, both in terms of future housing or in terms of future retirement funding. So, as you know, every step counts towards your retirement dream. That's why now NTUC and have been sitting down with all the gig economy company to try to encourage them to work out some scheme to help the gig workers to have some way to contribute to CPF or some sort of protection for them, so that as year goes by, they should have some CPF fund or some sort of insurance coverage for them. Otherwise, should they hit because of accident or because of illness, they cannot work for or disrupted their work for some period of time, they will be having difficulty to live to those periods. Because if you don't have saving and don't have protection, they fall sick or they have accident, there will be many spending money to have to recover themselves to last through the period of so-called recovery from their accident or illness. So meanwhile, they may not have income to see them through. This is very so-called challenging period for all these gig workers. Those who are the Grab driver, those delivery people, and all this. So that's the end of my talk this evening. It's quite a short one, but I hope you all can get some idea about why inflation is hitting us quite badly now. Not only now, but all the while inflation is there, but because of the war and because of the rising oil prices, now it hit practically everybody in the world. So of course, Singapore we don't have all the natural resources. Practically everything we have to import. So it will affect us faster than the other.